we will start in very soon. I'm just waiting for the agenda, which should be brought in any second. Thank you.
Thanks.
So, dear members of the Standing Committee, welcome to the last meeting of the annual session, the Standing Committee, dear heads of delegations. For this afternoon, there is an agenda that's distributed, and I would first of all like to ask you if you can adopt the agenda. It's adopted. Second, then I would like to give a note of order. There will be a break 4:30 for 30 minutes. We will start again 5 o'clock, and there will be coffee served during this time. Second point of the agenda is report of the President of the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly, and the report is circulated, but I will try to also conclude in oral report. There's numerous challenges through the OSCE region. The war in Ukraine, it's remains our biggest concern, in line with our mandate and our existing resources. An updated action plan has been shared with the OSCE PA Bureau. Given the limited options for parliamentary engagement at the present stage, our current efforts should focus on raising awareness about the Birmingham Declaration, continuing with strong and targeted public messaging, and providing a space for debates. Last month, together with the leadership of over 40 national parliaments and parliamentary assemblies, I took part in the first parliamentarian summit of the Crimea platform. Our message was clear. We, members of OSCE PA, will continue to support Ukraine diplomatically, politically, and we will continue to demand the Russian Federation, and we will until the end of their unprovoked and unjustified war. And I further underlined this message when I addressed the OSCE Permanent Council in Vienna. In response to the steps taken by the Russian Federation to double down in its clear and gross violation of the Helsinki Final Act, joint statements with the executive side have displayed the OSCE family's unity and resolve. We have also had monthly discussion on the web on how the OSCE can address the war in Ukraine and its consequences. And I thank you for your continued engagement in this. Since July, I have continued to reach out to our institutional partners to ensure that our efforts complemented each other. In September, I met with the President of the UN General Assembly. I also engaged with several ambassadors to the United Nations at the work of our Assembly. I represented the Parliamentary Assembly at the session of the Baltic Assembly, where I exchanged views with speakers of Parliament on the security situation in the Baltic Sea region, particularly in the context of the war in Ukraine. Regular consultations with regional parliamentary assemblies must continue to ensure that all perspectives are reflected in our work. The OSCE was once again unable to hold the Human Dimension implementation meeting. However, the Warsaw Human Dimension Conference was a great opportunity to reconnect with civil society representatives. Overall, the state of the OSCE is deeply troubling. The 2022 budget is not adopted yet, and I am also alarmed that the mandate of field operations will hang in balance in the coming month. I have discussed these issues with the incoming chairperson in office a few weeks ago in Skopje. We need to continue working closely with the OSCE chair to have the greatest impact. In Skopje, and during my visit to San Marino in September, I held valuable exchange with members of the OSCE PA to discuss current and upcoming activities. The input of all delegations, big or small, it doesn't matter, is necessary to exploit our potential and fulfill our missions. And I see it's also as very important to meet with delegations when I travel and not only get stuck in the official program and not let there be an official program without meeting, including delegations. And I would also like to mention the support for the new Women Network and the network of young parliamentarians. It should also contribute to promoting inclusive debates and decision-making. Let me note that regular meetings with the International Secretariat have enabled a rolling review of OSCE activities and helped identify issues of concern well in advance. Our discussions have fed in longer-term efforts to modernize the work of the Assembly and revitalize the OSCE. I was glad to participate in the event organized by the Parliament of Finland in September to debate ways we can support our organization. In a similar spirit, tomorrow the Bureau will meet to discuss ways we can rethink our working practice to have the greatest impact. Before I conclude, my thanks go to all your delegations for their activity, engagement in the Assembly. And I was proud to lead our election observations efforts in the United States of America earlier this month. And it's a true pleasure to notice that it's the high level of participation. It was absolutely crucial for the observation. Before I conclude, my thanks go to all. I appreciate your cooperation in the framework of the OSCE PA and your efforts to promote respect for our shared values and commitments in your national parliaments and your countries. It is important to remember to bring the fruit of our discussions back home so they can benefit our citizens and come to work into our national work in our parliament. I would also like to thank the International Secretariat for the support I have received as President. Thank you very much. And let's go further on the agenda. And next report is the report of the Treasurer, Mr. Peter Juul Jensen. The floor is yours.
Thank you. The next report is mine, and probably also the most important one, I should think. Dear Mr. President, dear Secretary General, and all my good friends, first of all, I wish to thank the Parliament of Poland for their generosity and their efficiency in organizing this autumn meeting with such a short notice. We are living in difficult times, and the debates we have held these last 2 days show the importance of this assembly and the need to keep our regular meetings. So thank you very much to Poland. Thank you. We meet at a time that a war of aggression with no possible justification is happening in the OSCE area. Allow me, as treasurer of the Assembly, again to express my fully solidarity with Ukraine and with the Ukrainian people. You have my deepest respect. Let me also thank the Ukrainian delegation and the Ukrainian Parliament for making their contribution to the OSCE PA. We very much appreciate their efforts under the difficult circumstances they face due to the war. Dear colleagues, this war is having a serious impact on our economics and our finances. All of our parliaments and of course our Assembly are feeling the effects. The current world economic situation presents serious challenges with increased inflation, and everything becomes difficult to predict. In accordance with our rules, I will be presenting to you an audited accounts of the Assembly at the time of our next meeting in Vienna in February. I am very honored to inform you that, as I promised, we finished the past year within the approved budget. There was a big effort, but we made it. My view is that the OSCE and the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly are now more necessary than ever. We therefore must continue our work. I thank the Standing Committee for approving the budget in Birmingham last July. I can confirm that our budget for this year ensures that the Assembly will continue to function in an effective way despite the many difficulties. Yes, national contribution did increase this year. That was because the two previous financial years used some of our savings in order not to put any financial burden on the governments during difficult times. This allowed us to freeze and reduce the national contributions to the Assembly even though the budget was increased. Madam President, dear colleagues, I will work hard in the coming months with our Secretary General and his staff to present to the Bureau in April a budget proposal for the next year that reflects the expectations of the members of the Assembly. In April, I will present our 2023-24 budget at the Copenhagen Bureau meeting. We have ambitious plans for our organization, and we know it will be difficult to ask for more resources, and we live in unpredictable times. Therefore, it will be difficult to ask for more money. But we also have to remember the resources have to follow if we are very ambitious, because we cannot push or pressure the Secretariat any more than we already are doing. I welcome and I'm very happy to receive your questions and comments in line with our policy of full transparency and accountability. I appreciate your trust and your support. Let me conclude by expressing my gratitude to the parliaments of Canada and Uzbekistan that will be hosting us in 2023. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Treasurer, for your report. Next report is by Secretary General of the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly, Mr. Roberto Montella. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. Microphone. Thank you, Madam President. I cannot but just begin again by thanking the Polish delegation for hosting us here. In Latin we say repetita iuvant. I said it before in the main hall, but I think this is the moment when you address the Standing Committee. I really would like to express again expressions of gratitude to Barbara for the efforts made by you, by the colleagues of the Polish Parliament. It's very nice that you're hosting us here. Thank you very much. Continuing in Latin, Madam President, mala tempora currunt, it's hard times, we say in Latin. But I will surprise you. Today I will also deliver a very positive report, in my view. There are many positive aspects that I would like to bring your attention on. As I said before, I'm Secretary General. I'm in charge of the staff of this organization. I have to ensure that the Secretariat has proper resources in order to service the members of Parliament. And you have seen our staff in action in the recent elections, the modern tools that we've put together. You've seen them acting here. You've seen the conference team led by Gustavo and with the help of Odile and others, how they've come up with this conference in a short time, working together with the Polish colleagues. I would like to underscore, as it is the moment when we also talk about administrative issues like the budget, the importance of the staff of the International Secretariat. And I'm responsible for that mainly. So the delivery that you get from dedicated professionals, but also people who are very friendly, very easy to access to, is something that I will not get tired of underscoring. So thank you very much to the Secretariat staff. On the budget, the Treasurer, dear Peter, thank you very much for what you're doing to also look at our resources, trying to also mainstream the message that we need adequate resources in order to remain a professional secretariat, because we have many professionals who are also looking to other international organizations, and we are not that competitive with other international organizations. So at some point in time, we'll also have to look into the remuneration package of our staff and try to also adequate these to other international organizations. But the good news about the budget is that we were on budget this year, that our independent audit was actually also a Danish company that so can speak to Peter in Danish, will for sure make a positive report about our budget. We stayed within budget, so I'm very proud of that. Also, as a Secretary General, I'm in charge of organizing events, in finding places where we can have our activities. And on this, I must say, if you read my report, my written report, which was circulated, there is a list of activities just from July, the last time I reported to today, which is impressive. How many members have engaged, have gone out, and all of these activities are also staffed, supported by the Secretariat. Another aspect that is very positive, and I would like to underscore, is the fact that one of the responsibilities we have at the Secretariat is to find venues for our future meetings. And I can say that up to the year 2025, we've already secured the venues for annual sessions and for the autumn meeting. And here I would like to, in particular, thank Canada and Uzbekistan, who will host us next year. I don't see Uzbekistan. Romania and Ireland in 2024. Another country which I will not name because it's still in the process of deciding the 2025 annual session, but soon we will have a positive response on that, and San Marino for the autumn meeting of 2025. So until 2025, we are secure that our venues for our statutory meetings are in place. And please, if you feel like you would like to take on this responsibility from 2026 onwards, we are of course happy and welcome you coming forth. I know that it's a very long time perspective because legislatures normally last 4 or 5 years, so maybe it's not a decision that you can make right now, but look into the possibility of also hosting some of our events. We have had recently 2 very successful election observation missions in Bosnia-Herzegovina and in the US. These were the biggest election observation mission ever in terms of members' participation. And also here, I think we have provided technological tools for our members. Those who were in the US who could see polling stations on their mobile phone, which are pretty much unique, let's say, in other international organizations in terms of support to members. Madam President, a word to you. Thank you very much for your leadership in this moment. It's been a very difficult time to be president of this assembly. You have been a strong leader. You have demonstrated strong leadership. You have managed to steer this assembly in moments where it's not easy to keep balance between all the kind of pressures that you've been subject to. The International Secretariat is here at your service to support you. Some of my colleagues are saying that I'm being too nice. We should test your diabetes at the end of the year, too much sugar. But I think we will continue to support you until the end of your leadership in July next year. And especially in this very hard moment, you need the full support of the Secretariat, but also of the entire Standing Committee. As I said, we are meeting in a moment of big difficulties. This is a moment where the existential there is an existential threat to this organization as such, the OSCE. If I look at the decalogue of the Helsinki Final Act, the Declaration of Principles, sovereignty, equality, respect for rights, inherent sovereignty, refraining from the threat of use of force, inviolability of frontiers, territorial integrity of states, peaceful settlements of disputes, non-intervention in internal affairs, respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms, equal rights and self-determination of people, cooperation among states, fulfillment in good faith of obligations under international law. Most of these principles have been totally disrespected by the Russian Federation in this case. And this is something that we have declared in 2014, in 2022, in our annual declarations. I think we should be proud of the track record we have in terms of our position to Ukraine. I have, in my institutional capacity, also the responsibility to ensure that the rules of this organization are respected. And that leads me also to the debate that we will have after this intervention. Of course, the International Secretariat has to advise the President on the respect of the rules of this organization. And I think at the outset, the rules of this organization, of the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly, are a little bit obsolete. I welcome your initiative, Madam President, for this informal bureau meeting that we will have tomorrow, which is informed by your vision paper, to really reflect in a more relaxed moment among leaders, elected leaders of the bureau, on the way forward for this assembly, what we should be, what kind of rules we should give ourselves. I think tomorrow's bureau is very important because it will trigger a process of reform of our rules, which can give us also the legal tools to be able to do our work in a bit of a more organized fashion. I would like to also express appreciation to the parliaments of Denmark for hosting our secretariat in Copenhagen, the government of Austria for hosting our Vienna office, and the governments of Germany and Italy for seconding staff to the international secretariat. We have a busy year ahead. In 2023, it will be a year also because there will be many events, one happening in Vancouver, long distance, one happening in Uzbekistan. In May, I think the Azeri delegation together with us wants to organize one of the Helsinki Plus 50 events in Baku. There is meetings, of course, in Vienna in February, our Copenhagen Bureau meeting. So it will be a year also of long distance travel, plus most likely elections in Turkey and in Kazakhstan, which I imagine we will observe. So we will have a busy year ahead, and I think that with the resources we have, the staff we have, and with your leadership, Madam President, we will be going through a successful year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary General. Now I will open the floor for those members of the Standing Committee who wish to comment on these three reports. And I have so far two head of delegations on the speakers list. First is Mr. John Whittingdale, head of the United Kingdom delegation. He will be followed by Ms. Irene Charalambidis, head of the Cyprus delegation. Mr. John Whittingdale, the floor is yours.
Madam President, thank you very much. I have to say I was not expecting, because since I gave a speech this morning in the debate we had about war crimes, so I sort of said most of what I wanted to say at that time rather than this afternoon.
Very much. Next speaker on my list is Ms. Irene Charalambidis, head of the Cyprus delegation. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam President, but I think I will say what I have to say tomorrow for the viewers, so you can go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. But then that's good. I will give the floor
Thank you,
to
Madam
Ilja
President.
Alkenate, head of the Lithuanian delegation.
I think it's the time for questions, not for our speeches. I have one short question to our treasurer. Thank you for your job, for your report, dear Peter. but you spoke about transparency. Some people, some representatives of our assembly members have such a question. I'm only translating. If we would be government and parliament, yes, parliaments usually control the government. And nowadays we all are saving money because times are very difficult. Do you have concrete figures about salaries of our staff members? I agree that this is very sensitive information, not for us, but at least could you provide our president with concrete figures about the salary of each person? For example, the leader of Vienna office, and so on. Thank you.
Thank you. I will give the floor to our treasurer, Mr. Peter Juliansen. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Yes. Dear William, thank you for your question. Actually, I don't have that knowledge because the Bureau, the Standing Committee, we have a contract with the Secretary General. We ask him to make sure that the Secretary function, and he has the responsibility for all that kind of stuff. But I listened during this meeting to both the President and the Secretary General. They say that they are going to reform, they're going to make changes in the OSCE PA, and this will of course also be a very good time to discuss among ourselves how can we make a transparent organization even more transparent. So please, if you have any good suggestions, I don't think there's anybody who has anything to hide. We are ready to put everything forward, but I would like to underline we have to take care of our staff, so we have to anonymize all figures we are putting out, but of course everything should be transparent. So salaries, how much meeting cost, how much we travel, I think we are ready to push that forward because we own this organization among ourselves. You deserve, of course, the transparency.
Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. And I just would like to say, to be clear how I see on my view, I don't want, as President, to be involved in individual staff's salary. But I think, I'm just speaking freely how, a lump sum, that's another thing, but not on the individual level, because Secretary General is the member of the staff who report directly to the President. This means to the Parliamentary Assembly. All the other staffs report to Secretary General, and this means that I think it's important to know what are you responsible for and what aren't you responsible for. And the lump sum, that's one thing that's important. I stop here. Thank you. And thank you for the question. Any other questions, comments? Yes, please. Ms. Farah Karimi, head of the Netherlands.
Yeah, I just wanted actually to thank all of you. I mean, the President for the work that you are doing, the General Secretary also, the Treasurer, as he mentioned, the most important report presented to us, but most of all, I would say actually the staff. So thank you very much for all the work that you are doing on behalf of us.
Thank you very much. And by this, I don't see anybody else on the list. So thank you. By this, I close this point of reports. And let's move further on. There is the next point, number 5, report of the chairperson of the subcommittee on the rules of procedure and working practice, Vice President Pascal Alisard, on consideration of proposed amendments to the rules of procedure. And I will give the floor by this to Vice President Pascal Alisard. The floor is yours.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Madame la Présidente, chers collègues, Monsieur le Secrétaire général, c'est un plaisir pour moi de vous retrouver à nouveau après Birmingham et je voudrais à mon tour aussi remercier nos collègues polonais pour la qualité de leur accueil. Comme vous le savez, notre Assemblée a confié il y a déjà plusieurs années à la sous-commission sur le règlement et les pratiques de travail la tâche de moderniser et d'actualiser le règlement de notre Assemblée. Ça, c'était avant les événements d'Ukraine. C'est une charge importante qui nécessite du temps et malheureusement, l'épidémie de la Covid-19 a ralenti ce processus dans la mesure où nous n'avons pas eu la possibilité de nous réunir autant de fois que nous l'aurions voulu. J'ai pris la suite de notre collègue Peter Bonnes au début de cette année 2022. La sous-commission s'est réunie à Birmingham et a réitéré sa ferme intention de travailler à une révision de notre règlement afin de l'adapter au contexte actuel et de moderniser notre interprétation et l'applicabilité des principes fondamentaux de l'OSCE. En plus d'avoir discuté du travail général de la réforme nécessaire à notre Assemblée, nous avons étudié avec beaucoup d'attention la proposition d'amendement du règlement adoptée à Birmingham, consistant à instaurer un mécanisme de suspension de délégation nationale de notre Assemblée en cas de violation grave des principes fondateurs de l'OSCE. La sous-commission a donc répondu ainsi, a cherché à répondre à la demande de l'Assemblée. Depuis son adoption en juillet dernier, la sous-commission s'est entretenue, réunie à de multiples reprises, afin de discuter de la mise en pratique de la proposition d'amendement, notamment les 18 et 26 octobre, et nous sommes parvenus à une proposition d'amendement du règlement actuel sur les échéances de vote sur le dit amendement par notre Assemblée, ainsi que sur la rétroactivité de l'applicabilité de l'amendement. La proposition de texte dans les 6 langues officielles de l'OSCE, ainsi qu'une note d'introduction résumant les principes et raisonnements clés qui ont guidé nos discussions et la délibération de la sous-commission ont été distribuées à toutes les délégations nationales de notre Assemblée par courriel le 4 novembre 2022. Je sais, parce que j'en ai beaucoup entendu parler, que toutes les délégations ont pris le temps de bien prendre connaissance de cette proposition avant notre réunion de commission permanente. Je voudrais vous rappeler, mes chers collègues, les principaux éléments qui ont dirigé nos discussions et qui étaient tout d'abord notre volonté pour cette nouvelle règle de résister à l'épreuve du temps et de ne pas être adaptée uniquement aux circonstances actuelles. En effet, si la règle était adoptée, elle n'aurait pas d'effet rétroactif. De plus, une attaque militaire étant d'une gravité telle qu'il nous est apparu nécessaire de faire la distinction avec d'autres types de violations. Aussi, une attaque portant atteinte d'une manière aussi grave à la souveraineté et à l'intégrité territoriale d'un pays devrait être reconnue en tant que telle par notre Assemblée. En outre, pour faire barrage à d'éventuelles applications abusives, nous avions proposé d'exiger un vote à la majorité des 2/3 de notre Assemblée afin de déclencher le mécanisme de suspension. La suspension a pour objectif d'être une sanction claire à l'égard des membres de l'État en faute et exclut leur participation de tous les organes de notre Assemblée. Cependant, il nous a semblé primordial qu'une communication avec le Parlement suspendue soit maintenue en tout temps dans le but d'encourager des changements de politique qui pourraient à terme conduire à une réadmission au sein de notre Assemblée. C'est pour cela que nous avons prévu dans cet amendement la mise en place d'un comité de suivi qui devrait rendre compte annuellement à l'Assemblée. Cette proposition d'amendement est importante, ses conséquences et ses implications le sont tout autant. Je vous demande donc de la considérer avec une attention toute particulière, comme nous l'avons fait au sein de la sous-commission. Avant de rendre la parole à Madame la Présidente, afin de procéder à la discussion, je voudrais rappeler que d'après l'article 46 de notre règlement, lorsque la commission permanente a adopté des amendements, quels qu'ils soient, au règlement, la décision de changer la règle entre en vigueur 30 jours après son approbation par la commission permanente. Par correction et par respect vis-à-vis des collègues et vis-à-vis des membres du secrétariat général qui ont travaillé sur le projet, je vais maintenant passer à la lecture de l'amendement. Nous proposons donc d'ajouter à l'article 3 le nouveau paragraphe 7 suivant. Si un État participant ou des États participants mènent une attaque militaire contre un autre État participant qui se traduit par des opérations militaires de grande envergure ou portant atteinte d'une manière aussi grave à la souveraineté et à l'intégrité territoriale d'un pays, l'Assemblée peut décider à la majorité des 2/3 que cela constitue une violation flagrante, grave et persistante des principes de l'acte final d'Helsinki et des engagements de l'OSCE. Une fois cette décision prise, la participation des parlementaires de ce pays aux travaux des organes statutaires de l'Assemblée, y compris toutes les composantes des sessions annuelles, des réunions d'hiver et d'automne, des sessions extraordinaires, des réunions de bureau prévues conformément au présent règlement, sera suspendue. Dans le cas d'une telle suspension, le président établit un comité de suivi qui rend compte annuellement à l'Assemblée. Ce comité suit l'évolution de la situation relative aux violations constatées et s'efforce de maintenir le contact et la communication avec le Parlement de l'État participant visé par la suspension. Celle-ci sera prolongée automatiquement. 1. À moins que les États participants concernés ne soient convenus à une cessation effective des opérations militaires ou, deuxième option, à moins que l'Assemblée ne décide par un vote à la majorité des 2/3, à la suite du rapport annuel du comité de suivi, qu'un changement notable dans les politiques de l'État participant dont la participation des parlementaires a été suspendue justifie la fin de la suspension. Comme je l'ai dit précédemment, en cas d'approbation hypothétique de cette proposition d'amendement, la décision de changer le règlement entrerait en vigueur 30 jours après son approbation par la commission permanente et son application ne serait pas rétroactive. Cela qui signifie très concrètement, dans le cas qui nous concerne, la violation des principes d'Helsinki par la Russie, ça vient d'être rappelé à juste titre par notre présidente, cela signifie que cet amendement pourrait éventuellement entrer en vigueur et être exécuté après la prochaine réunion statutaire et plénière de notre Assemblée, ce qui serait vraisemblablement la session annuelle de Vancouver, c'est-à-dire en juillet 2023. Chers collègues, je termine en vous remerciant sincèrement pour votre attention. Je suis très intéressé d'entendre vos contributions, vos commentaires sur cette question importante, même si, depuis plusieurs jours, j'entends avec beaucoup d'intérêt, avec beaucoup d'intention, les réactions, les commentaires, les suggestions des uns et des autres. Je sais aussi que depuis Birmingham, beaucoup de données ont évolué et que nous devrons tous nous y adapter. Nous devrons donc être pragmatiques. Merci Madame la Présidente et je vous rends la parole.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice President Pascal Alisard, and for all the work you have done as chair of the Committee on Rules of Procedure, as well as dear colleagues who are members of the Committee on Rules of Procedure. It's not an easy task you have performed, but you have a suggestion that you have presented. I would like to say a few words before I open the floor for discussion or debate. I think it's, first of all, it's important for us as parliamentarians, and particularly for you as head of delegation, to recapitulate a little bit about where are we today and what is the history. We in OSCE Parliamentary Assembly, we have since, as long as I have been a member of the Assembly, but particularly 2014 with the illegal annexation of Crimea, been very strong when we have condemned Russia's illegal annexation. Also what Russia have done with the occupied territory in other countries. We have done so all the time. When the war broke out, Russia's war against Ukraine in the full-scale fledged where it is now, we were already the first day, the 24th of February, active. A united assembly, almost united, 55 out of 57 countries spoke out against the war in favor of Ukraine. When it's come to the first meeting, full meeting in person with all members of delegation for the annual session this summer, it was also unanimously adoption of the Birmingham Declaration. And the Birmingham Declaration, it involves a paragraph which Vice President Pascal Alisard have talked about and the outcome of that. And it's said very straightforward that OSCE, there should be a change in the rules of procedure. The Committee of Rules of Procedure should develop a suggestion. It's done. And it's presented. And then I see that it's very difficult to reach a consensus. I have the same feeling as Vice President Pascal Alisard. And I know that you also have it, dear colleagues. And I would like to say, when we start the debate for this part, you are head of the national delegations. You are appointed by your national parliament because you are persons that are trusted, that your parliament, your parties have trust in. And so we have trust also in each other. And I think we need to find a way forward. If it's this suggestion is not the way to go forward, then there have to be another one to go forward. But there need to be something because we have a decision behind us, adopted by the annual session unanimously. No reservation, no objections. It was agreed. Nobody said anything against it. Also, when it comes to change of rules of procedure. So I really hope that we could have a constructive debate here. because I think very, very strongly that if we can't get forward here, I see it as problematic, because the change here is related to rules of procedures. We take our decision, normally when it's the annual session, with majority decision. Then when it comes to the rules of procedure, we have another format, consensus -1. And the issue of our rules of procedure, it's have a long history. I have also heard it since I was new in the Assembly, and so have you who are members since a long time, that we need to change the rules in different ways. They should be constructive, they should be firm, they should be something that are standing above the time. And it had never really succeeded because of consensus -1. So my approach to you as head of delegation, your comments here is really important if we should be able to work forward in a way to show strength of the organization and also the cooperation. Because I think this is really the point where this is the point when it comes to rules of procedure, when it comes to what to do, what not to do, that we need to be constructive, all of us. So I respect whatever view you have, but be constructive. And I'm sure you will, because I know you, dear colleagues, you are constructive, and we do always, as parliamentarians, find a way forward. So by this, I think this, for me, it was important to say those words, as you are the body who take the decision. I would also like to put forward that for this autumn meeting, there is 46 out of 57 states participating. There is some delegations who are not taking part, and there are some who are, yes, it's not here, but we are more or less 37 head of delegations, or delegates who are appointed by the head of delegation here in the room, and some members also, and members of the Bureau who are not either in the capacity as head of delegation or as member of the Bureau. I would also like to mention that we have received 2 letters, one from Russian Federation and one from Belarus, saying that I don't want to have a decision. There is one letter from United States saying that I look forward to a decision. So it's different views that are sent, and that's also the signal I have received during our 1.5 day here. It has been very much debated. I have met with individuals, I have met with delegations, I have met with groups, and I know there is a lot of discussion going around here in the room. So let's use this time for debate in the most constructive way. I know that you have the courage and you have also the experience, dear colleagues, to share your views so we can go further on with this very difficult issue. And by this, I will open the floor for your comments on the report, on the proposed amendments. And I have 7 members of the Standing Committee on the list, and it's still, of course, possible to request for the floor. But let's start. We take a short second here, so...
Do you want to start with the Kotorayev, and then I'll... Great.
Okay. We wait 1 second, so
Just, if you can just tell them to keep their sign up.
Yeah.
Just note everybody.
Everybody will speak.
Like if you give them.
Yes, if you just hand up your sign and then Louis
Just leave it and then.
Polotai will
Just leave it like this. Yeah.
leave it like that, and then you will be noted on the list, so we don't lose any time here. I will start with the head of the Ukrainian delegation. Mr. Mugita Polotai, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Dear colleagues, let me start with words of thankfulness to members of Rules and Procedures Subcommittee for, on our opinion, excellent job that was done. The amendment became much clearer and understandable if comparing with the variant that we all together, all of us together, worked and discussed in Birmingham. So, what I would like to stress on, that our organization, as an organization which has the main goal to fight for security and cooperation in Europe, and not only Europe, since the day of founding the organization. Thanks God, a lot of countries joined the organization, and it definitely improved the strength of organization, influence of organization, and spread Helsinki principles wider than only in Europe. But times are changing, unfortunately, and today we have first case of full-scale war of aggression, frontal war in Europe since 1940s. And of course, OSCE as an organization which fight for security and cooperation should have some sanction mechanism to react on such situation, unacceptable situation. Not only today, but unfortunately, probably in future. Because I'm absolutely sure that if OSCE, so as other honorable international organizations, had even such light mechanisms of reaction, maybe there will be no tragedy of Georgia. Maybe there will be no other hard circumstances in Europe and around Europe later. Because the state which understands that it can ignore international rules and procedures, international law, definitely will continue, always continue to do it. You all have the text. It's clear, it's very professional, it's understandable. If we vote, if we have consensus today, Russian delegation still will have half a year ahead to show that they really are ready for negotiations about peace. So as Ukrainian side always demonstrated since February 24th. This amendment doesn't close any window for negotiation. This amendment doesn't close any way to find peaceful decision. But yes, this amendment closes possibility to use OSCE as space, as channel for propaganda, for new and new fountains of lie that you together with me heard from them February 24th. Do you remember this day when they were chicken not to come to Vienna, not to look in my eyes, how they lie us from TV screens? Do you remember? But can you remember any word of what they said? No, because it all was lie, fountains of lies, fountains. We have honesty, we have dignity. Do we want us to be used as somebody, as, you know, actors in TV movies with Pyotr Tolstoy or other as TV stars, saying their lies, showing their real attitude? Do they have real diplomacy? Do they have real political life? No. Imitation. Imitation of political life, imitation of parliamentarism, imitation of diplomacy. We are ready to start negotiations. We are ready to work on peaceful decisions this very day, not next day, this very day, when they show their real will, their real wish to find peaceful decision. But today, they only show their will to kill their own soldiers. They push new waves on our positions near Bakhmut and Solidar, like in Second World War, losing from 300 to 8, sometimes 100 people per day. They organize new mass rocket attacks against our civil infrastructure. So do they show goodwill for peace? No. And yes, this amendment, don't let them to use OSCE as a space for so-called debates. I don't know about all of you, but I'm sure that you are standing on more or less the same position. But we, as Ukrainian delegation, we're not going to debate with cannibals aspects of taste of human meat. That's all. We are ready to debate serious things. We are ready to discuss serious proposals. But we're not going to be present in one room with people who are proud of every new killed Ukrainian kid. All other opportunities, all other options are on the table by this amendment. Everything is reachable. But again, everything is reachable and depends on them. We, as Ukrainian delegation, we, as Ukrainian state, and I'm sure that we, as parliamentarians in OSCE, we are open to hear words of truth, to hear words of goodwill. And this amendment gives this opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mikita Potorayev. Next speaker on my list is Mr. Selami Altinok, head of the Turkish delegation. He will be followed by Mr. Peter Osuski, head of the Slovakian delegation. Mr. Selami Altinok, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Söz hakkımı kullanmak istemiyorum. Daha sonra bir değerlendirme yapacağım.
I would like to refrain right now to take the floor, but I will use my rights to reply in the upcoming periods. Thanks.
Thank you. Then we go further on. Thank you very much. Then we go further on the speakers list. Next speaker on my list is Mr. Peter Osuski, head of the Slovakian delegation. He will be followed by Ms. Irene Charalambidis, head of the Cyprus delegation. Mr. Peter Osuski, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Lady President. Dear friends, dear colleagues, I am now quite sure the oldest member of this assembly because I arrived in Vienna at the Standing Committee for the first time in 1999. And with interruption when I served as a vice rector of the university, I spent a lot of years in this assembly. And now I feel that this, what will follow, and our voting, is the most important moment in the 23 years I spent here. We are on the crossroads. Nothing is like it was before. And of course, nothing should be like it was before. I was asked, like probably also other head of delegations, by the Maltese delegation, how I will vote in this case. At that time, I hadn't the precise wording, but it is clear and easy to answer the question of Maltese colleagues. I send them very quickly that I will support it. And I can quote Martin Luther, who said, "Here is where I stand." And so, for me, it's an easy question, how to vote. Because the usual mantra of this assembly, of course, it was reasonable for decades, is to speak that we are a forum of dialogue. Of course, we are. But there are sometimes moments where a prolongation of dialogue is a madness. Try to think about the fact that Hitler's Germany had a Reichstag. Who was the speaker? Reichsmarshal Hermann Göring was the last chairman of Reichstag. Do you think that British MPs or others would be ready to have a dialogue with any member of Reichstag after bombing of Coventry, after the fate of burning London, the Netherlands MPs, if they exist, after Rotterdam, Czechoslovak MPs, after Lidice had been burned down? It would be a total madness after we saw what happened in Bucha. How is the situation in Mykolaiv? How many killed innocent civilians are victims, and we should have a problem to vote in this point. It's a clear madness. So in my opinion, there is totally no way out of this voting than a yes voting, because in other case, our assembly is going down to a position that make questionable to be present here in the future. Many thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Peter Osuski. Next speaker on my list, it changed here. Okay, is Mr. Mark Pritchard, Vice President Mark Pritchard from United Kingdom. He will be followed by Mr. Björn Söder, head of the Swedish delegation. I would just like to say, dear colleagues, please don't withdraw when you get the floor, because everybody can't be on the end of the speakers list unless you want to speak at the same time. But keep the place when you get it. There is room for everybody. And you can always ask for the floor again if there is something you would like to add when you have spoken and you want to make some more comments. Vice President Mark Pritchard, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you again to our Polish colleagues for allowing us to sit here and debate these issues in their beautiful Parliament. Over the last few days, this organisation, I believe, has been shaken. And perhaps after today's debate, it might even be fragmented. But despite all our differences, and there are clearly many, not least over how to diplomatically and politically isolate Russia over its brutal and illegal aggression in Ukraine. But there is still, and I think this is what I want to focus on now, there is still more that unites this assembly than disunites us. Everyone, I'm sure, in this assembly, in this room, is motivated by the will to do the right thing, advancing the common good. And I don't believe there's any individual here today, or any delegation, as I look around, that is flying the flag for Russia. But there are clearly varying degrees of support for Ukraine and how we deal with Ukraine, specifically on the proposal from the subcommittee and the amendment as laid this afternoon. And that is perhaps democracy, free debate, differences of opinion. But this organisation needs to stop saying one thing and doing another. Whatever happens today, I believe we can recover its competence as an organisation, its good standing in Europe and internationally, and indeed with our partnership observer nations that are here. What do they think? And I say to them, we can recover. And we will recover. But we cannot fall into the same political and diplomatic bear trap ever again. Self-inflicted, embarrassing, and damaging, yes. But we must learn from these mistakes. And today's internal impasse does not, as I suggest, need to be catastrophic. But we can learn, and we must learn. The integrity of this Assembly's member states should not, in my humble submission to you as colleagues today, be indivisible from the future integrity of Ukraine or this organisation. Thank you.
Vice President Mark Pritchard. Next speaker is Mr. Björn Söder, head of the Swedish delegation. He will be followed by Ms. Christine Badertesch from the Swiss delegation. Mr. Björn Söder, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. Dear colleagues and members of the Standing Committee, the OSCE has since its founding been a forum for discussion and debate, a forum for furthering peace, prosperity and the principles of human rights. In these debates, conflicts can of course arise, but conflicts have also been solved. This is what OSCE is and what it stands for. When states do not adhere to these foundational principles, to the agreed terms between states, when the states go to war with each other, we need clear mechanisms for what comes next. It is our duty as parliamentarians and politicians to create these mechanisms. No state should be banned from the OSCE. That would only show a lack of ambition to return to a peaceful discussion. A state that breaks the principles of the OSCE should, however, be suspended. Suspended from the general debates, from the discussions, and from the OSCE. I want to make it clear, a state suspended should be in contact with a monitoring committee in order to work towards reinstatement to the OSCE and in order for the state to continue adhering to the principles of OSCE. I welcome the discussion regarding this proposed amendment, and I believe it is a sign of soundness and sense that we are debating it, but let us also debate it sensibly. Let us think clearly and let us show the world that we can act. I'm very pleased to say that there is a strong support for this proposed amendment throughout the entirety of the Swedish delegation. All parties are united and will remain united. We will continue supporting this proposed amendment and we will continue searching for support among other delegations. Thank you.
Björn Söder. Next speaker on my list is Ms. Christine Badertouch, member of the Swiss delegation. She will be followed by Ms. Vilja Alkenate Abramakene, head of the Lithuanian delegation. Ms. Christine Badertouch, the floor is yours.
Sehr geehrte Frau Präsidentin, sehr geehrte Damen und Herren, liebe Kolleginnen und Kollegen. Der OSZE-Raum durchlebt derzeit besonders düstere Stunden. Zu dem illegalen und illegitimen Angriffskrieg, den Russland in der Ukraine entfesselt hat und den die Schweiz vorbehaltlos und aufs Schärfste verurteilt, kommen weitere bewaffnete Konflikte mit verheerenden humanitären Folgen hinzu. In diesem Sinne teilt die Schweizer Delegation natürlich die Bedenken des Unterausschusses und wir verstehen ihre Argumente sehr gut. Nichtsdestotrotz kann der uns heute vorliegende Vorschlag längerfristig negative Folgen haben. Mit der Annahme dieses Vorschlags verpflichten wir nicht nur unsere parlamentarische Versammlung. Wir riskieren auch, die OSZE als Ganzes zu schwächen, indem wir einen Kaskadeneffekt auslösen, den wir nicht mehr eindämmen können. Die OSZE ist heute eine der wenigen multilateralen Plattformen, die alle an den Konflikten beteiligten Parteien Okay.
Interpretation.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Die OSZE ist heute eine der wenigen multilateralen Plattformen. No, interpretation. Okay.
There are two channels in one. Yeah. Speaker channel plus interpretation in one channel.
Let's see.
Yes.
Actually,
Does it work now?
we hear you.
C'est bon.
Let's try again, please.
Okay.
Okay, well.
Ah, okay. Okay.
Does this work? You want to try the translation? Translation works? No interference? Okay, go ahead.
Die OSZE ist heute eine der wenigen multilateralen Plattformen.
No.
It's not working.
No, it's not working.
Okay.
What do the technicians say? Should we take a break for 5 minutes? Maybe some others can speak, which do not need. They need some kind of translation for any languages. So there is a coffee break in 5 minutes. Can we maybe take a coffee break now and be back here? Dear colleagues, because of the translation, we take a coffee break now and are back here 5 minutes to 4.